So we are on Parshas Emor,
781.
781, thank you very much. And today we are going to speak, we're going to speak about many things, depending on how much time we end up having. But we're going to spend a significant amount of time speaking about words and speaking about education. The name of the parsha is Emor, and Emor means speak. Okay? So we're going to take a look at speaking and many things related to speech. Okay? Also, we're going to look at the context. What is this speech referring to, and who's speaking to whom, and what the message is, okay? Also wanted to mention, how many mitzvahs are there in the Torah?
613.
613. Now, there are more than 60 mitzvot discussed in this parsha. So,
That is a lot.
more than 10%, because it's more than 61, okay? So it's many, a great deal of mitzvahs are mentioned in this parsha. And, just so you know, where the mitzvahs are buried, so to speak, in the parsha, this one has a good deal, as did last week's. Parshas Kedoshim also had many mitzvahs listed. If I'm not mistaken. Okay, so let's begin the parsha. God said to Moshe, and by the way, I just want to say one other very important thing before we start, that the mitzvah of Shabbos and festivals and the counting of the Omer and the Omer offering are all in this week's parsha. Okay? And you have that on page 795 and 797. The Omer offering in the middle of 795, and then the counting of the Omer on 797. Okay, so you see that?
That's not the right one. Is this right, Shani?
Let me see. No, this is not correct. No.
This one?
Yeah. What you want to do is, you want to make a copy of this, and then you want to make a copy of, I'm wondering if there's not a better, you know what, just make a copy of this and make a copy, so 136, and then 139 and 140, and we'll take some time at the end of class just to review how it's done, okay?
So Shani, since today is the 23rd, do I do the prayer for today, or do I do the first prayer and the prayer for today?
Okay, I'll show you what we do after class.
Okay,
Yes,
good,
okay?
thank you.
Okay. Okay, so God said to Moshe, "Speak to the priests, Aaron's sons, and say to them." Now, okay, so speak to the priests, Aaron's sons, and say to them. So today we don't have our editor here, Deborah Platt, but if you were editing, what would you take out?
Speak to the priests.
Exactly.
Aaron's sons.
Okay.
Why do you need that?
Okay, good. Speak to the priest, Aaron, okay, speak to the
the only
priest.
priests?
Okay, good.
That's what I was going to say. Are there other priests?
Aaron's sons are the priests.
The only priests?
I mean,
The only priests at that time, huh?
Aaron's sons and their children and their grandchildren, that was the family of priests, yes. Okay? By the way, there is reason for saying the sons of Aaron, okay? And that is addressed by Rashi, okay? So I'll tell you why it says the priests. What else would you edit?
And say to them.
And say to them, exactly. Say to them. If you're speaking to them, you're going to be saying it,
Right.
okay? So speak to them, right? So let me answer both questions. That was good, Debbie, and that was very good, Ava. Speak to the priests, bless you, and speak, and this, by the way, we were not going to talk about but since you found the
golden
edit, exactly, I'm just going to just look at it for a second. The priests were only the people that were fit for service in the temple. So, for example, a priest that had a physical impediment could not serve in the temple. Okay? So in other words, he's a good guy, he's a priest, he comes from the right family, but somebody with an impediment, I'm just making this up, a limp, a twitch, being blind, exactly, something like that, they could not serve.
Okay.
So God just automatically assumed that Aaron's family, they're all good guys.
Well, God endowed them with a job, okay? In other words, what we're saying is, we're not saying are they good guys or bad guys. They are fit for the job, okay? But if you have an impediment, you cannot serve. So you're still a Kohen, and you still get some of the fringe benefits, or you still have to be careful with how you behave, even though you don't have the job of serving in the temple.
What if you're evil? What if you got an evil kid? You just don't.
Yeah, you just don't.
How many
No.
sons did Aaron have?
Okay, so Aaron had 4 sons. Aaron had 4 sons. 2 of them already died, unfortunately, right? And they were raised to, in this aura of holiness and commitment. Look, eventually, there were a lot of, in fact, in the times of the Second Temple era, towards the end of before the destruction of the temple, the Hashmonaim, who were the Hashmonaim? The Hasmoneans.
During Hanukkah.
During Hanukkah, right? Do you remember there was the family, Mattatyahu, the high priest? He was the leader at the time, and they fought the war, and they overcame, right? Now, after that victory, in which they were 100% pure and good and fine and dandy, in the subsequent years, some of those people pushed themselves into positions that they were unfit to be in, like the royalty or whatever, and they got themselves into big trouble. So, did things go awry during history? Yes. But in terms of who serves, if you're a Kohen, you're born into it, and that's your pass to serve. Just like if you're Jewish, you're born into it, that's your pass to be a light unto the nations, like it or not, you have to step up to the plate. Can you defect? Yes. Can you mess up? Yes. But it's your obligation and responsibility
Were
to
Aaron's
stand.
first 2 sons that were killed, were they priests at that time?
Yes.
time.
Okay, so I have a question.
Go ahead.
What if one of them, not Aaron's 2 sons, but somebody down the line, had some kind of physical impediment? Who would be the person to judge to say they can't serve in the temple?
Okay, so the halacha tells you exactly what it is. In other words, it's not arbitrary. It's not, oh, I don't like the color of your eyes.
No, I know that, but I just didn't know if there was like somebody that would, like some,
Authority that would
Yeah.
go through and say, oh, okay, you know, like you have to get your physical before you enter the army or whatever. I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know. But there were certain impediments that are listed. That's a good question. Very good question. I don't know the answer to that.
Well, at that time, Moses was still living.
but
Right,
he couldn't
and
do it
Aaron.
because Moses had a speech impediment. That's what he said himself.
Right, but
Right.
Moses was not a Kohen.
Right, I know, but that's what I'm saying, that's why, okay,
Aaron was appointed as a Kohen, he wasn't born one.
right.
Right,
And today, you are what your father is.
exactly, exactly.
I have something to say. quickly.
Okay,
All
go
right.
ahead.
So when God said to Moshe, speak to the priests, Aaron's sons, and say to them, we always come up with, and say to them, but if you don't put that in, the person that you're saying speak to them is in their head, what am I supposed to say to them? So that actually gives them direction and say to them. Do you get what I'm saying? I'm not saying
So,
it right.
yes, so why can't we say then, tell Aaron's sons the following?
Right.
Or speak to Aaron's sons the following.
Right.
Why what we asked was, why the double say?
Speak and say.
Speak and say. Speak to them until, you speak to them the following, or say to them the following.
All right, so that should explain that, shouldn't it?
So maybe
doesn't.
it's geared specifically to them, not to anyone else.
Right,
Okay,
and he
it
wants them to
is-
say these words, not words that they make up that they should say, but whatever is telling them.
Right, but couldn't we use less words to convey that message?
At that
It's a
time,
gentle way of telling them.
at that time, only Aaron's sons were the priests.
Right.
So, yeah.
Okay.
That whole thing.
So
is-
wait. So let me just explain. What Debbie said was, why does it say the priests, the sons of Aaron? Because what we're saying is, let's say someone says, look, I have an impediment. You know, I'm missing a finger. Okay, I have an impediment, so I can't serve anyway. So these laws don't apply to me. So we say, yes, they do. Yes, they do. You're a son of Aaron. You're a grandson of Aaron. Even if you're unfit for the service, you still have to abide by these laws. Okay, so, or even a Kohen that marries someone who he shouldn't have married, like a widow, the high priest that marries
Or a divorcee.
a divorcee, exactly.
They're
So,
not allowed.
Once a
right.
Kohen, always a Kohen.
exactly. So even if you're unfit for the service, you still have to abide by the laws of purity and impurity that are the laws that are going to be given here. Okay? So that's why we use the word sons of Aaron. So for all those people who are saying, well, it doesn't apply to me, no, you're not, you're in. Okay? So that's what the sons of Aaron comes to teach us. Now, why the double say and speak, or
Yeah.
speak and say? Rashi says, let's take a look here at the classic questions, 780, right in the middle of the page. The double expression, speak and say, means that in addition to telling the priests themselves to observe the following precepts, Moshe should also warn the adult priests about educating their children in these areas. So in other words, say to the priests, or speak to the priests, and say to them about speaking to their children. So it's like you're getting the speech into motion.
Got it.
You're speaking to the priest, who will then be responsible to speak to their children. Okay? Now, the interesting wording, and Minerva touched on this a few minutes ago. There are two ways to say speak in Hebrew. Emor, or
Daber.
daber, exactly,
Daber.
like
The bear.
Aseret Hadibrot, the 10 sayings, which really are the 10 Commandments.
They're actually utterances from what I remember.
The 10 utterances, that's the Asara Ma'amaros, that the world was created. So the world was created with Emor.
Okay.
Okay, but the commandments, the 10 Commandments were harsh. Okay, so there's a soft way to speak, and there's a no-nonsense way to speak. So when God wills the world into creation, let there be this, let there be that, he uses the word emor. When you speak, when God said the 10 Commandments, it was the no-nonsense speech, the command, even though it doesn't mean command, it means sayings. The 10 dibrot are the 10 sayings, but it means commandments because that word saying is a harsh, no-nonsense word to use. Okay? So here he's using the emor. And this is one of the places in the Torah that it teaches us how one must educate. When we're saying, tell the priests and tell them this is what they should tell their children, it's using the word emor because it's telling you that when you're teaching, when you're transmitting, when you're trying to get people, when you're trying to win people to your way, the only way to do it is with softness, with gentleness, with sensitivity, as opposed to this is how we do things, this is the way, and everyone else is in trouble. Okay? So here from the outset, Moshe is telling Aaron, you got to tell, you got to talk to your kids. And these are the rules that your kids have to follow. But we want them to educate the next generation. That's why we have that extra word, emor. But when you educate the next generation, we want you to use your wisdom and to be sensitive, to be light, to be gentle, because tough education doesn't work. So it's telling us how to educate. That when you educate, there's an expression used in which we say Yemin mikarev, small doche. When you're educating, you draw close with your right hand and you push away with your left hand, which means you educate, inspire with the right. The right is symbolic of your strength. Most people in the world are righties. So with our right, with the vast majority of our investment, we go gentle, we go light, we go empathetic, we go understanding when you're trying to teach. With the left, which is the weaker part of us, which is the lesser part of us, we discipline. So I think I heard recently that 80% of interactions with one's children or students need to be positive. And 20% can be disciplinary, okay? And, by the way, in the 80% of positive is not included, honey, hang up your coat, please. That's not included in the lovey-dovey education, okay? So 80% has to be the warmth, the kindness, the gentleness, and only 20%. I mean, this is what the modern day psychologists say. And
So
then
nice job. I'm glad you hung your coat up. That's the nice thing.
exactly. Or I want to tell you how we do things, or let me share with you a positive, let me teach you something, show you something, explain, or whatever. It's got to be positive and with warmth and with understanding. Okay? Now, the word that is used, by the way, it gets lost in the English, is lihazhir. I wonder if it's brought down here. Lihazhir, okay, the last sentence of what we just read, it says, Moshe should also warn the adults about educating their children. Now, warn in Hebrew is lehazhir, but the word lehazhir also means to, like the word Zohar, okay? The Zohar is the like original textbook of Kabbalah, okay? And what does Zohar mean? Zohar means shining, bright, okay? Or illumination. So what we're saying is lehazhir gedolim, that the adults should bring out the brightness. The adults should make their youngsters shine. The adults should bring out the brightness and the polish of the youngsters. How? Through the softness, through the warmth. But that's what the education is. Not don't do this, you can't do that, you're not allowed to do this is how you do it, this is how, think about the things that tick you off, even when people say it nicely.
Right, absolutely.
Right? Right? They're I didn't say anything wrong. I just said, in our house we don't do that. And people's,
And they think they're being helpful.
they think they're being helpful, but they're being so
Condescending.
exactly condescending, or they bring out the worst in the people that are hearing this because it's so demeaning. Exactly. So the idea here is to bring out, to make them shine, to make them bright, to make them illuminated through this softness and gentleness and kindness. And so the education here is in a very soft, pleasant, positive way, not negative, disciplinary, etc. Okay, so this is just a little insight into how to educate. Now here's another very interesting thing. There are 3 places in the Torah that speak about education, like teaching your children the ways of mitzvot, okay? One of them is here. One of them is where we're told that you're not allowed to eat blood. And another one is where we're not allowed to eat insects. So in other words, we're obligated to teach our children all the mitzvot, okay? But there are 3 places in the Torah that this, here in this case, it's the Kohanim, the priests, that are told teach this stuff to your kids, and in the area where we're taught about the blood, the prohibition of eating blood, we're told, okay, teach this to your kids, and in the place where we're told don't eat insects.
Not going on Survivor, are they?
So we think to ourselves, what is what are we supposed to learn from the fact that these 3 examples were selected? What's the connection, or what does this tell us about education? So one of the things that is brought to light in the Rebbe's teachings is, blood in the heyday, okay, when the Torah was something, it was a delicacy. And people just were drawn to having blood as part of their, all the meats that are not kosher are saturated with blood, right? That's blood it's tasty, it's succulent, whatever, and it was very attractive over the millennia. It was a very attractive thing. And when you're educating, you think to yourself, how could you possibly teach these kids? This is the culture. Everybody eats blood. Everybody is attracted to it and loves it. And, how are you going to get the kid to say, to put it at arm's distance?
What was the main reason for it?
What was the main reason not to eat the blood?
Right.
That's where the soul is.
God
The
says,
what?
don't eat the blood. Yeah, because that's where the soul is, whatever, I mean, but
That's
it,
life. The blood is
the
life.
blood is the source of life, but really, why? Because God doesn't want us to eat the blood. You know, so you think to yourself, right.
Or the insects.
Or the insects. Okay, so first let's talk about the blood. So the
Yeah.
blood is like, it's a hard thing, it's a hard sell. And you think to yourself, we're not going to be able to do it. But the fact that we have 3 instances where the Torah says, you got to teach your kids about this, tells us that even in the areas where we're going against culture, where we're going against human desire, everybody wants it, everybody loves it, everybody's attracted to it, you can still teach the kids that it's that they don't have to enjoy it, that even if it's something that everyone's doing, they could find it within themselves not to do it, and even if it's something so enjoyable and so attractive, they can still reject it. So in other words, it's telling us, it's giving us an insight into education that we have, that when educated properly, you can teach your kids, even or kids at large can be taught that even if the whole world is doing it, you can still abstain, and even if it seems so enjoyable and pleasurable, you could still hold back. So it's giving us an insight into education, that education is very, very powerful, that we can indeed educate our kids or the world or the adults, because when we speak about education of the younger ones, we're not only speaking about young in age, we're also referring to people that are young in knowledge, right? People that haven't been exposed to the teachings of Torah, people that are not knowledgeable. Can they be taught, or can they learn that they could put, reject things that are pleasurable? Can they be taught to reject things that are,
I think it gets
that everyone is,
tougher with each generation. I mean,
It
if you
does
look
get-
back with
yeah.
each generation, because there's so many vices out there now, there's so many temptations, and it's so easy now. So where have we lost that? Did we lose that with the parents, the priests, so to speak, that were supposed to instill that value, or what we're supposed to do? Because now it's like I just said, why? Why can't I eat the blood? And because God says,
Right.
And today's kids are not going to accept that.
Right. But, so first of all, what you're saying is true, that over the millennia, the tendency to
Relax.
to relax, or it's harder to be good over time. Okay, it's harder, in simple terms, it's harder to be good over time. But that does not change so then maybe as time goes on, there are less people that are good. Okay, but that does not release us from our obligation to both teach ourselves and teach those that are in need, the youngsters, whether in years, whether in knowledge. And what it is telling us is that even in 2019, when the world is in such a demoralized state or unmoral state, we can still do it. We can still do it. That's the message. The message is, you think you can only teach them the things that are easy to teach? I got news for you. You can even teach them the things that are cultural, that our culture is obsessed with, and everyone is doing it and everyone is enjoying it. You're still empowered to overcome that. So while it is true that as we go along, it's not for the feeble-hearted and the faint-hearted, and we've got to kick up our fight, true, but nonetheless, it's possible, and we can be a part of it.
Unlike years ago, where people would follow through, today you have external pressures like
Yeah.
peer pressure,
Right.
cultural pressures.
Right,
To
right.
to not do that.
Right.
To do your own thing, be your own person.
Oh, so you're saying we have a benefit now.
No, I'm just saying that it's
Choices.
harder today
Right.
to instill these.
Absolutely. It is
Because of all
harder.
the external-
Right. But don't kid yourself. When the Torah says, do not eat blood because it's an abomination, and like everyone else is eating it, don't eat it, that was very, very tough. That was a very, very tough. You read some of the stuff and you think where it says, don't bring your children as an offering to this idol. There was an idol called the Molech, and they would bring their kids and burn. I mean, it was a gruesome offering, and you think to yourself, crazy. Who would ever do that? And people were drawn to do that. It was a hype. It was a culture. It was a mishigas. And many Jews succumbed to that craziness. So while what you're saying is true, that nowadays the challenges are tremendous, don't think for 1 minute that the challenges then were any less for the people of their times. They were huge. And in fact, we're going to talk about this in a minute in a little bit of a different context. When God gives us a bigger challenge, He gives us the wherewithal to overcome the challenge. So people that have little challenges, they're not so great in potential. People that have a lot of challenges, God has, when you look at someone with a lot of challenges, even if they're failing, you say, my gosh, they must have within them a reservoir of so much greatness, because God only gives you what you can handle.
Right.
Right.
So if God is giving you stuff, if God is placing us in this impossible generation where it's everywhere you look, everywhere you turn, everything you want to do is ridden with so much challenge and so much ugliness and so much peer pressure and so much allure, it happens to be that God has given us potential, tremendous potential and tremendous possibility and wherewithal to deal with this, because He wouldn't throw us in without giving us the key to get out.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
Okay? So as much and as difficult as it is, we always have to know that we have what it takes to overcome. And that puts, we gotta look and say to ourselves, are we digging deep enough into the reservoirs of our potential to do what we need to do and to face the challenges head on. And we probably could, even with the little things like spending too much time on your phone, there are ways to curb that. Are you interested? Do you want to take the challenge, or whatever it may be? But the fact, I guess, the point that I made with this idea of not eating the blood, that it's so tempting and it's so prevalent, and yet we have the possibility to educate against it, right? Because that's the mitzvah it's connected with. So we should know that we could do it. So that's one. The other, let's just talk for a minute about the insects, eating the insects. Eating the insects is, as we mentioned, because God said so. Okay? So you think to yourself, look, we're living in a time where, like Debbie said, because God said so, they're not gonna buy that. They're not gonna buy it. Says the Torah, if you bring it to them properly, even that they'll buy. Even something that doesn't make sense logically, they will buy it. You have to figure out how to say it. You have to figure out how to teach it. Emor, okay, with softness, with sensitivity, with warmth, with compassion, with understanding. But you could do it. You could teach them even something that doesn't make sense. Why should I do it? Why? I don't, because God said so. There's a way to teach that too. And the other piece of it also is, as you say, my gosh, there's something like eating insects. Could you imagine? People, like, ugh, who wants an insect, right? Who wants to eat an insect? Where do kids, I once heard somebody talk, they were saying, where do kids know that they shouldn't eat insects? Right? Maybe it was a little boy, he was 2 years old, and he picked up, a worm, and his mom, like, no, don't, and he threw it down, and like, immediately it registered, yuck. And throughout his life, he has the worm, yuck. Okay? Now, what about someone that even past that yuck is looking for the worms to eat? Yuck. You think, what a low life. And the Torah says, oh, you think he's a low life? Guess what? With the right attitude, with the right approach, you can educate him too. And so that's why these are the things that are given to us to, specifically in the Torah, where the Torah speaks about education, so educating against the prohibition of blood, even when everyone is doing it, and when it's there's such a lure, there's such a temptation, you can handle that. Even individuals that you have to teach that are so like yuck, they're so low, they're so entrenched in garbage, you can still pull them out. You can still educate them. And even things that don't make sense, just because God said so, you can do it. We have the ability to do it. Okay, so that is the little piece that we were going to talk about today on education. Now, what I'd like to talk about is words. Okay? The name of the Parsha is Parshas Emor, which means speech. Okay? And we all know that there's good speech and there's bad speech. Okay? Something that we call Lashon Hara, which is
Evil tongue.
evil tongue. It is the defaming of someone. Okay? Someone does something, someone said something nasty, whatever, to their wife in public. And now all of us are chatting about, did you hear what he said? Did you hear what he said? Did you hear what he said? Is it true, what he said? Yes.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, I was there. I saw. I heard it. Okay, so Lashon Hara doesn't mean that it's a lie. It means that it's true. Okay, because there's another name for speech that is untrue. That's called Motzi Shemra, or defamation. Okay, in other words, you're making something up about someone, and you're bringing their character down. Okay, in the eyes of others, you're saying, this guy is nasty, or this guy is whatever, when it's not true. Okay? But Lashon Hara is true. Now, this is the time of year that we study Ethics of Our Fathers, Pirkei Avot. And one of the things that it says is that not don't judge a book by its cover. It also says don't judge a person until you're in his shoes or in his place. But another aspect, or another Mishnah in the Ethics of Our Fathers says, you should judge every person, lekaf schus, which means to the side of merit. Okay? You should judge a person to the side of merit, which means give them the benefit of the doubt. Okay? In other words, you heard the guy speak inappropriately to his wife, and you think to yourself, you know, maybe he didn't sleep last night, or maybe he's going through financial problems, or maybe he's not feeling well, or maybe somebody heard, whatever. There are many ways that you could give somebody the benefit of the doubt, okay? But it's not saying give them the benefit of the doubt. It's saying you should judge them to the side of merit. In other words, you see them doing something bad. You see them doing something bad. I saw the guy go and take the money from the table that didn't belong to him. It was sitting on the table, and we made a collection. We were going to give it to some poor person, and I saw him take $5 out of that and put it in his pocket. Okay, I saw him do something bad. So what does it mean to judge him meritoriously? Did he do it or didn't he do it? There's no room for doubt. The benefit of doubt. He did it.
Yeah.
Okay, he did it. So where's the benefit? And it says, give him the benefit, judge him to the side of merit.
We don't know why he needed that money.
For
Yeah.
medicine, you don't know why
Yeah.
he took it.
Okay, that's one way to say it, but this is also what we were speaking about before. If this guy has such an inclination and such a weakness to take that which doesn't belong to him, imagine how much is in his arsenal, in his person that God gave him to overcome that weakness. So when you're judging him, you're not even saying, oh, he had a bad day. Oh, he needs a cup of coffee. Oh, what you're saying is, I see the beauty in the guy. I see that he's such a good guy, because if he has this weakness, imagine how much potential he has.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're not even taking into consideration what he did or what he didn't do.
That's really going deep.
Exactly. It is going deep.
I don't know if
for.
I could do that.
So-
I would be
That's why you're
yeah,
here.
I don't
So, but interestingly enough, this is a Mishnah in Pirkei Avot, which is Ethics of Our Fathers, which in other words is called the words of the Chassids, Mila de Chassidusa, which means going beyond the letter of the law. In other words, the letter of the law would be to give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he needs a cup of coffee. Maybe he was short $5 of his rent. Maybe he didn't realize that it was the pile and he thought it was his own, whatever, okay? All that kind of stuff. But if you want to go beyond the letter of the law, if you want to look at this as a chassid, according to Pirkei Avot, then you're going to look, the whole story doesn't even matter. You say, looks like this guy has a weakness for taking things that don't belong to him. Wow, he must have so much potential for generosity or for goodness or for greatness, because that's such an ugly weakness. And if God gave him that ugly weakness, he certainly gave him such great potential to overcome that. So you're looking at the merit of the person and not at the ugliness.
I mean, that was cool. I love that interaction. And anyway, who are we to judge? We don't judge.
We're not supposed to.
And that's,
We're not supposed to, but we judge.
judge.
We do.
And then
We
if you
judge.
do that, you recognize it and say, oh, that's not how we play the game. And you shift your thinking. You come from another place. You come from a godly place instead of, this is what we're doing today place. Because we're two worlds here, you know, here and there. And our thing is to get there and let this go.
Right.
That's
And
how I feel.
these are the instructions.
Yeah.
But
These
the
are
automatic instinct or reaction is to judge.
Exactly.
And maybe God gave us that automatic instinct to judge
Exactly.
for another reason.
Well, yes,
Yeah.
that is true. Like, we're always, look, I'll give you an example. There was a friend of mine who once went it was when my kids were young and my house was so hectic and we were getting ready for some event, and she said, you know what, I'll do the grocery shopping. So she had a list of things and she went and she picked it up and she came to the house. And my kids, they were young at the time, and they were taking the stuff out of the bags and they were looking. oh, okay, this is kosher. Oh, this is kosher. And this friend of mine was very offended. She said, you know, I mean, I bought the stuff. Don't you think that I checked if it was kosher or not? And I said, you are right. Of course you checked. But I have taught my kids to check before they eat anything.
Yep.
Okay? We are taught to judge. Every time we go to act, we say, should I, shouldn't I? Is this kosher, is this not kosher? Is this okay, is this not okay? So I said, this is not a reflection on your kosher shopping skills. This is the fact that they're putting away the groceries and they check. And frankly, I mean, this is 2019. I find myself checking my own products that I myself shopped again because like, wait a minute. Oh, yeah, this is fine. So, on the one hand, we are judging because we're supposed to be judging. Should I do this? Shouldn't I do this? You know, so if we say, no, we don't judge anything. Yes, we do. And we're supposed to judge. We're supposed to judge because you have to constantly choose. Am I going to do this? Am I going to do that? Am I going to eat this? Am I going to eat that? Am I going to spend my time with this or spend my time with that? Am I going to spend my money on this or on that? So we're always judging and we're always, do I want to be friends with such a person or not? Do I want to belong to this society or not? So we are always judging.
But the Torah tells us we're not supposed to be judgmental.
Right. So it tells us in specific cases where you're not supposed to judge. Human nature is to judge.
Right.
You know, how many times I find myself listening to a lecture and I'm like, Shani, relax and listen to the lecture. No. I'm listening and thinking, but that doesn't align with what we believe, but this does align with what we believe, but that, listen to the lecture. Just listen to the lecture. Let go of what you believe, but we don't. When you believe strongly and when you, everything, even if it's a lecture about animals, it's not even anything moral or ethical or whatever. I find myself always judging, and I'm not judging the person, I'm judging the content. Sure. Does this content align itself with what I believe and what I don't believe? Sure. Okay.